Okay, I have this idea to start this new series. I think it's going to be called 5 Minute Friday, and the idea is that every Friday, hopefully, we'll do a 5-minute take on something. Just like van life related things, frequently asked questions, park ranger things. The first one that I want to do today, I haven't really decided on all the details yet, but I kind of just wanted to dive in on this. Today's topic is 5 things you can't help but learn by doing van life. Number 1. The first thing you learn is how to conserve water. In that way, I mean, you become very aware of how much water you're using. What's she doing? Sailor! Water isn't the easiest thing to get and have when you live in a van. Okay, that's not gonna work. Next thing we're gonna try is going from the top of the bed. For me, where I am right now, I have a water hookup outside, so it's pretty easy for me just to go outside, fill up the tank in the back of the van with the hose, and then I have water. But it is one extra step. It's not just like it's always flowing. For me, I will use the smallest drip of water coming out of the sink when I'm doing dishes because I just don't want to have to go back there and fill it up more often. Another reason for this is because every drop of water that goes out of the sink ends up down in my gray water tank, and then that's another thing that I have to empty. So the less times I have to fill up the tank, empty the gray water tank, the better. And that's just for being hooked up like I am right now. When I'm traveling and I'm off grid, you have to really go out of your way to find places to fill water. I've used water fills in campgrounds, gas stations, one in a random strip mall. Point is, it's a hassle. Basically, you're just always thinking about water, where you're gonna get it, and therefore you start being more conscious about how much water you're using. Going on 3 years in the van now, that kind of just extends into life when you're not living in the van. Number 2. Minimalism. I know that term is kind of loaded. You think about very bare bones, clean spaces. You don't have to be a minimalist in that way to live in a van. You do have to think about living minimally, as in you can't always buy everything that you want. There's no space in here to store it. So these pillows are actually just a pillow case that are stuffed with all my winter stuff. I know for myself and for a lot of other people who live this kind of lifestyle, whether it's in a van or a tiny home or a small space, you get used to buying things smaller. For me, it tends to be a one in, one out policy. So I try to get rid of something for everything I get. Does that always happen? No. But at some point it does end up happening because you have to make room. Number 3. Learning to trust your gut. I do think there is another level of trusting your gut when you live in a van, especially if you are traveling as a solo female. It's something you're already doing, but I think it becomes more prominent when you are traveling around and you're constantly around new people, in new places, unfamiliar environments. There's just a lot of stuff that mentally you have to do. In my mind, there is this perfect ratio of things I look for when I am camping. So I've talked about this before, where I feel like there has to be like 1 or 2 people nearby, but not too close, like you want your distance. If something goes wrong, I can yell. I have gotten more comfortable when there's no one around. I have pulled up to places where there is no one there. It's a perfectly good spot. It has great reviews on the apps. And I pull up there and I just don't have a good feeling about it. That sucks because it's not like you can just pull over to the next spot. Like, this is something that's usually planned. I've gone on the apps, I've done the research. Pulling up and realizing that you just don't feel great about it, to me, that's trusting your gut. Now, is there a chance I could yell at some stranger that I'm in trouble and that's also a bad guy? Yeah, that's definitely a possibility, but there's risks involved in every part of life, and I just still think you should live your life. 4. Okay, the 4th thing, you get really good at relying on apps, applications on your phone. There's just so many variables when you're traveling. You've got weather considerations, road conditions, road closures. It goes on and on. So you really start depending on apps, a whole lot. Weather conditions, obviously if you're driving a big heavy van on dirt roads, please don't get stuck, please don't get stuck, please don't get stuck. You really don't want to be out there if it's raining or it's wet or it's muddy or it's slick or it's snowy. So I'm constantly looking at weather apps. If it's too hot, I can't stay in the area because I have a dog. It is so hot. As a photographer and videographer, that came out of nowhere. As someone who likes to shoot photo and video, I rely on apps to tell me when sunset and sunrise is going to be. Google Maps, Apple Maps, Avenza, Onyx, downloading maps, looking at satellite and terrain maps, figuring out if the road is suitable for a van to drive down, dispersed camping apps. There's a rest stop app, cheap gas like the Gas Buddy app, gyms, Planet Fitness when you need to shower, places to fill water. Number 4, becoming a complete expert on using online applications. 5. This one is kind of related to the trusting your gut, accepting change. I'm a person who does not like change. In the long run, I do like it. It leads to great things, obviously shaking things up. It's character building, good things come from it, a lot of growth. In the long term, change is good. But in the short term, I hate it. Within 4 months, I hated moving from the van into the cabin, and then I hated moving from the cabin back into the van. It's change again. Now, for someone who hates change and is uncomfortable with change, I have definitely chosen a lifestyle that is full of change and constantly adapting. I'm a park ranger for the National Park Service, so working seasonal gigs, people move away, you meet new people, you live in new places. Van life, or no matter how you're doing it, you're constantly moving to new places, you're constantly waking up in a new place. Every day is a new thing. You definitely get more comfortable with change. I think it still is hard for me. It's probably still really hard for everybody, but it's something that you have to become okay with in this lifestyle. Having to constantly deal with change, you can't help but become more comfortable with it. So yeah, I think that sums it up for my first Take 5 Friday. That's not the name. I think that sums up my first episode of 5 Minute Friday. I hope this is helpful in some sort of way. If you have ideas, if you have questions for this series, like there's something that you're just really curious about as far as van life or being a park ranger or travel in general, leave a comment or shoot me a message in some sort of way. I will try to do a weekly 5 Minute Friday video, and I will try to keep it to 5 minutes, and that's all I can promise. I can promise to try. I'm really excited to do a new series. I guess I'm like really into series. Thanks for watching, and let's do this thing. Okay, bye. Today's the 4th thing. God. Today's, what am I calling this again? I already forgot. Relying on maps. No, apps. The 5th thing that I forgot. What's it called? Whatever. The first thing is you learn Friday, Take 5 Friday? No. 5 things that van life, the Friday 5? No. What's it called? 5 Minute Friday. I do want to do another one of these 5 Minute Fridays. Did I get it? I think that's it.